is day 622. Your Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you'd like to sponsor, come share more. Your Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please contact me directly. Be very greatly appreciated. Today we're doing Siman Shin Samach Gimel, Sif Nun Gimel to Samach. Last full day of doing Shin Samach Gimel. The image if there are houses which are beyond the inner lechi, where you put a lechi in the middle of the mavli, and below me lechi with some mavli, and there's no lechi at the end of the mavli, those houses which are beyond the lechi are definitely also to carry. Shayin lem lechi, have no lechi. But they don't forbid carrying for the people who live on the other side of the lechi, more into the mavli. And the inner one's allowed to use the area inside inside the lechi if they made an eruv. Because since the outer ones did not make a lechi, and they can't carry in the mavli, it's as if they're removed from the mavli. Therefore, they can't forbid the inner ones. It's not like two chatzeros, where one is behind the other one. Because sometimes there, when you're listening to one of them, forbids the other one. As we're going to see. Only asks if the person on the inside goes out through the outer one, as opposed to here where the inner one, that's where the inner one is bad, it goes out through the outer one. By us, the inner one is good, and it doesn't matter, it goes out through the outer one. Love. It only answers, but only those who are allowed to step through are aser. Such as the inner one and the outer one. Below half, not the opposite. But the that's in the yards. But by a mavi, those who didn't make lechi are not considered to be the name mavi. They can start me kind of as if they're no longer here. Sofa mavi nechsha b'halechi, and the end of the mavi is where the lechi is. The rest of it is cut off. Nun dal avoli must have some mavi shnei pasim shnei tzadei mavi. If in the middle of the mavi they made two pasim, two rods on each side of the mavi, or pas arba tzadei or a plank of 4 tvachim one side. Or kshiyosem has pesach if it's more than 10 that made suits a pesach. Avim yesh chatzos matikun lachutz. Even if there are chatzeros outside that fix in the middle of the mavi, and they also made a fix for the top of the end of the mavi, b'lechi b'kora. They're separate from each other. And each part makes its own eruv. They don't forbid each other. The time of the reason is you came in the dai b'lechi. Since it would have been a lechi, good enough to have a lechi in the middle of the mavi. And they added to the fix, which name pasim. They added to pasin or pas arba, so it's a pesach. So it's clear they want to divide each from each other altogether, West Berlin and East Berlin. That works. They're not allowed to divide up. If you do the bare minimum fix, it's not considered to be dividing up. Unless you elaborate on that fix. The same halacha applies to lechi, applies to korah. You go to a beam in the middle of mavi. They can't carry further than the korah. If there are people living beyond that, towards the end of the entrance to the mavi, and they put a korah at the end of the mavi. You lost the korah if they didn't make a korah at the end of the mavi, the edge of the mavi. They're separate from the ones beyond the korah on the inside are separate. And the people on the inside make their own eruv. Has to be that the inner mavi, which is cut off from the outer mavi, has to have all the parameters of a mavi. It's got to be longer than it's wide. It shouldn't be less shorter than 4 amos. So she had batim psukim toho, houses and yards to be open into it. I mean, look, if not, ain't a chatzi azut teres mavi or teres chatzer. So then the inner part is only not a mavi, it's a chatzer. Tzich o pas arba, and requires either the plank of 4 tvachim or shnei pasim or 2 rods, mashuim of any mashu, b'shnei tzdadim on both sides. Nun vav is a bit interesting. Me'adinim shenis bar b'dinim mavi. So what's the principle that now we learn by Mavi that we learn by Chotzer? That to separate, you have to have an upgrade. Okay, so how does that happen? There's a Chotzer with many houses. And they want to divide one from the other. When each have Chotzer will each have the Chotzer will make its own Erev. Or they have to make an upgrade to the minimum fix. The minimum fix who pass arba. It's a plank of 4 or shnei pasim shurim or 2 planks which are mashus. So what's an upgrade for this? 2 pasim or 4 by 4, even though we doesn't seem to have any halachic status in of itself. 2 planks is 4 by 4, but it's still considered an upgrade. Or it's a pasim, which is obviously an upgrade. So our seeds which have a tzur special on all sides. There's nothing to divide them in half internally. To make a complete wall to divide from each other. Unless if you have a pirza which is less than 10, which does not need tzur pesach, they put that tzur pesach, that's an upgrade. Change the tikkun ha'chaychid is not a necessary fix. Shaya die b'shnei pasim passed out. But we have to have 2 l'chayim or 1 plank. But he says, you know what? Perhaps even more, but he takes it back basically. Says perhaps even if it's more than 10, and use tzur pesach, which you have to do anyway, you can still divide up. Because it's like a complete wall. Even though it's compelled, even it's necessary, you can't do anything less than tzur pesach, but appears to be 10. Money works. Jesus Hashem says we have to consider this. Braxton says, "I'm going to have Ronskon Lamdal be Mukevas Chomot." Also, so you have a city which is surrounded by walls and doors. The only divide them in half through a mechitza. In Sham, Mashut Tzur Pesach Lo Mahani. Time the Tzur Pesach doesn't work. Perhaps he doesn't mean that. Tzur Pesach mechitza, Tzur Pesach like a mechitza. But I say you have to say Tzur Pesach works. This man is that because you have so many Erevin like a monthly, there a gazillion Erevin next to each other, right? And if theoretically one is, if the Tzur Pesach doesn't interrupt, well, they make one big Erev Chatzeres, but the Tzur Pesach would not be interruption. You couldn't consider them to be each. If one was kosher, there was puzzle. Then the puzzle one, which has Tzristas Regel, on the kosher one would answer it. So therefore, I'm thinking not necessary. Yeah. So therefore, we have to say Tzur Pesach divides it up, and basically it's the whole issue of Atzi Ram Bal Mechitza. We don't say Atzi Ram Bal Mechitza, so I'm not sure I understand fully where the Arukh HaShulchan is coming from. The Chorah Tzur Pesach must work in order to divide up the place which is the Eruv from the place which is not the Eruv. Okay, nun sein. Mavi shuracha b'pischas estimama mavi, which is 20 amos. It's opening. But tzech hakoshtein one divide and 2 kadesh kol chad lo yeyoser miyaser. So each side will not be more than 10. B'yichad tzur pesach, which is required to make a tzur pesach. Enamo b'mashi yichal kenu b'emtza b'konei. It doesn't work. Just put a stick in the middle. Or be'ez a mechitza or any wall. After you chava arba tvachim, even it's 4 tvachim long. Mishnamina asabir the hagi sabai visa. Because the airspace on each side of this small structure comes and cancels it. As if it's not there. Chacham said in order to divide up this mavi, also pass kavos, or you make a plank which is 10 tefachim high, b'meshech arba amos, 4 amos long. And you put it parallel to the length of the mavi. In other words, the 4 amma length is not between the 2 sides of the mavi, but stretching back into the mavi. Since it has the length of a mavi, 4 amos, ain't avirim about so the airspace is not canceled. Even if each of the airspaces on the two sides of this group bigger than it. Come on, kind of like here, each side is more than 4 amos is airspace. The reason is the name with true walls, low shayach lemar asevia the hagisa b'hagisa or mevatole. You can't say that the airspace is canceling. Mechitzas hay malach l'mosh misinai. Mechitzas are halach l'mosh misinai. B'chol same will the same in their overarching categories and their details. But lamina behefsek pachas mishloshim and kana l'kana. We don't say it's an interruption. If there's less than 3 tefachim between each stick, because it's halacha must be saying that's love. It's true by all walls. But actually, only when you just make an interruption between 2 walls, not a real mechitza between 2 walls, then we say Amina Davirim Hefsek that the airspaces cancel the interruption. And they required this pass of 4 amos to be to the length of the mavi, because it was to the width of the mavi. Then the airspaces would cancel it. I'm not sure why we'd say that even by Arba amos, which seems to be a makom chashuv. That's what Arukh HaShulchan is saying. He said, but actually, when I put it going down the length of the mavi, so in effect, what it does is make 2 mavos, because it's 4 amos, and on each side is a separate mavi. So make 2 mavos. So how does that pass? Shlishi, and this strip of 4 amos is the 3rd wall, the kol mavi, for each of the 2 mavos. Mechitza and a wall cannot be cancelled by airspaces. According to this, on each side of the mavi now, which is split in 2, you have to have the parameters of houses and courtyards, open into it, and all the conditions of a mavi. Mela, and it follows, that if you're going to use the lechi, each one of these openings now needs the lechi. Using a beam, use a beam, it can be one long beam across the 2 of them. As long as the beam is not more than 3 tefachim from the pass, which is put in the middle, and the pass is not necessarily flush with the edge of the mavi, it could be somewhat further in, but it should be more than 3 tefachim away. Because it's got to be a wall for each side, and it's got to connect to the korah on each side. The bracket says, the way things going on. The Rashba says, when you have that lengthwise 4 amos, it can't be canceled because you can't cancel the wall of a mavi. And now it's a wall of a mavi. Nunches. Because of Tesis Varosh, by two Shulchan Aruch, Sif Lam Gimel, the Mashmina Pasa the Kosam Tzoysham Mavi Yesh Ludin Mavi Akum. Whatever goes from the end of that strip, and from where it ends all the way to the back of the mavi, where it's obviously is open air beach behind that strip. It's like a mavi which curves in the middle. It's like in effect you have a U. 2 of those which are U, based on this strip of 4 in the middle. I think she was Zakmin by Emtza, they divide up in the middle. And Psuchim, now they're open, there are 2 heads. Biadvarm, meaning to say, the Heina Meshamar, the Pasam Chaik Amov Shembos. True. Say divide the Mav into 2 mavos. But that would be completely true if it reached all the way back to the middle wall. Such as when the entire length of Mav is not more than 4 amos. Or if the plank is more than 4 amos deep. The plank is only 4 amos. And then the Mav continues beyond that, beyond back of it. Close to 4 amos. So then it's only distinguishes between the 2 of those up to the 4 amos length of the wall. Zel Varei Madron Mishamham Ein Choshim Beheter Tiltu. If the people who beyond the edge of that pass, going inside, are not interested in carry. So the outer mavos can divide up in two independent eruvs, and I guess they have to divide themselves up from the back also. But if they one's in the back, want to also include the eruv, and by them it's all like one mavli because they don't have that pass in the middle. So then it's like a crooked mavli. Where the halach is, each time you have a corner, you have to make a tzuras pesach. We see that on one side. Sorry, you have to make a tzuras pesach on one side. We see that shein lechi on the other side, a lechi or a korah, which is barba siman haba, as we'll explain in the next siman. They argue. They say this is not a Mavi Yakum. The Mavi Yakum Elok Sheish Shneit side. It's studied with Shus Rabbin. But Mavi Yakum is only when it's going on two sides of Shus Rabbin. In other words, Kemizrach V'Doram. It has one opening on the east and another on the south. That's how very foolish. Then it's like one Mavi which has two openings, two different sides. I would say Roshim side Echad, but if both openings are towards one direct side, come on, like here, Leis Limba. It's not going to be to the Mavi Yakum. Later on, we will see that Mavi like Ches is Mavi Yakum. According to this, you'd have to say that one of the openings, yes, it's a Ches. One of the openings go to the other side. Even according to the previous opinion that there is a Mavi Yakum which can be perceived here. It's only if the opening from the end of the 4 amma pass until the back wall is more than 10 ammas. But if it's only 10, and certainly if it's less, it's only like an opening. In a true Mavi Yakum, we're going to say even less than 10, you need a tikkun in the internal corners. But that's like two true mivos. But not in this case. Yeshua writes that all the Achronim were masking that even if it's less than Talmud, it is a Mavi Yakum. The Lord says that you can. Oh, that's Mishabur, but the Biur says you can be Mekel because we have the Rashba by Mavi Yakum. Okay, we're going to see all that in the next simon. Now we have brackets. I'm looking at because of the Zel which they would say which was Ramin, is on two sides was Ramin. I'm astounded. The Zel Das That's the opinion the Ritz we brought down, which is has been two different sides. Because before Shafil be Eser. He says, but even it's not before if it's even more than 10 on one side, that's not considered Mavi foolish. I mean, even if it's if it's more than 10 from the back of the pass to the back wall, it's not considered to be a Mavi Akum. I would say Rosh Los Fili came to Rosh disagree. Then there's I think much Kasavti, though therefore I paskin like I paskin. That if it's more than 10, it is a Mavi Yakum. Samach Variva Bechidusha Chaylik Al Komash Bar everything. The Pierre Shah passes that said Klaush Vos. He says that this strip, which in the middle does not make it 2 Vos. Rak Lamita Rocha B'Yos Meser. So to diminish the width less than 10. We don't say the airspace comes and cancels out. The pass Arukh Arba Amos Lemon is for a zoo. Because in the pass, which is 4 amos, you don't say it's 4. It's just like my walls. Piece of Nisha Mavi Hachamikonim. It still remains one Mavi like it was previously. The Daiba Lechi Echad. You won't even need a Lechi on both sides of the divide, just on one side. The Daiba Lechi Echad. So, and also the beam goes higher up than the strip. Since the strip is not from the walls, so therefore, 1 quarter is enough. I think it's partial. I'm not sure what he's coming to conclude. Oh, it's going to include the following thing. Says the pas is not a wall. You more than 3 above the pas, as long as it's not 3 above the side walls. Time Rabbi is feeling contest Rosh is Chalkish name Mavos. Rabbi does hold it's divided into 2 Mavos, Lechain Rosh Yavid Varv, and the Rosh, since he goes that way, brings down the Rabbi.